Hi everyone. So once again, it's time for Woo to talk about mind-body dualism. Here we go.
Argument 23. The dying brain hypothesis for near-death experiences. Stated as, near-death experiences, NDEs, are hallucinations caused by the stress of an oxygen-deprived dying brain. This argument, called the dying brain hypothesis, is purported by many skeptics and materialists. NDE skeptic and University of London psychology professor Susan Blackmore is one of the main proponents of this theory. In her book, Dying to Live, Near-Death Experiences, she argues that the NDE is merely the result of hallucinations from the brain that erupt as it malfunctions and collapses.
Which is perfectly consistent with everything we know about how reality works.
However, Greg Stone, an NDE expert on my discussion list, wrote an elaborate and excellent critique of Blackmore's book in his article, Critique of Susan Blackmore's Dying to Live.
Which basically boils down to, the book doesn't prove anything and Blackmore is just biased. I'll just summarize it with this meme.
Also, who the hell is Greg Stone and what makes him an expert? You did mention Blackmore's credentials, but not his. I wonder why that could be.
Look, we have the dying brain hypothesis, an explanation that fits the facts, which is perfectly consistent with everything we know about how reality works. Then we have the afterlife hypothesis, which is inconsistent with our current understanding of reality and is supported by no evidence whatsoever. Add to this that NDEs can be reproduced in centrifuges. If you can experience an NDE when there is no possibility of actually dying, then what reason is there to think that NDEs are ever experienced while dead? Is it the afterlife, or is it just the hallucinations of a dying brain? Which is the better explanation? There's no question about it. The dying brain.
There are several convincing categories of evidence to suggest that NDEs are not just mere hallucinations caused by a brain that is shutting down. These tend to be ignored or dismissed by Blackmore and others who support the dying brain hypothesis. First and most importantly, there are many well-documented cases where NDEers, while out of body, were able to see specific details and hear conversations in other rooms and faraway places that they couldn't have known about beforehand, and yet upon returning to the body find that what they saw or heard was in fact verified to be accurate and true.
Many? Well-documented? Citation needed.
Blackmore herself knows about these cases and even mentions them in her book, but she dismisses it simply by stating that she doesn't believe them. This, of course, reflects the closed-minded model of skeptics who dismiss facts and data that don't fit into their hypotheses.
And of course you immediately rule out the possibility that she doesn't believe them because they weren't convincing? Can you elaborate just a little on this?
If NDEs and OBEs were just dreams or hallucinations, then these perceptions at a distance wouldn't turn out to be accurate.
That doesn't follow. They simply wouldn't be more accurate than chance.
The separation of spirit from body or the mind's ability to remote view are the best hypotheses that fit the well-documented data.
Yeah, that well-documented data that hasn't been presented ever. And why don't we find that people who pass out in centrifuges can provide any useful information about distant or future events? Why don't most people who nearly died have such information? Why are these so-called well-documented cases nothing more than anecdotes? Ever? Where are the double-blind studies? No study of remote viewing has ever produced results better than chance.
One famous example of this is the case of a nurse named Kimberly Clark. Talbot describes this incident in the Holographic Universe.
Yay, another anecdote.
In addition, research studies back up these claims as well. One example is the experiment done by cardiologist Michael Sabom. Talbot describes this as well.
Enough with the anecdotes already!
Also significant are the studies that support the validity of out-of-body experiences. NDEs are considered a type of OBE. Rick Stack describes one notable example of these in his book Out-of-Body Adventures.
In this study, sensors detected physical changes at the location supposedly being viewed by someone having an OBE. Now that's very interesting, so it makes me wonder what controls were used. And we're not told. Gee, I wonder why.
Another notable example was done by Charles Tart, where a girl known as Miss Z was able to identify a 5-digit number above her bed in a position that she could only have seen if she had floated up there.
I've already addressed this. No controls were used at all. She could have gotten up and looked for all anyone knows. But still, we're talking about specific cases all the time. Where are all the properly randomized, double-blind clinical studies confirming all this stuff that would be common if it were true?
2. Second, NDEs usually result in permanent, life-changing effects, whereas dreams and hallucinations do not.
Really? Dreams can't have life-changing effects? Dreams can't inspire? Dreams can't give you ideas? Although I don't recall that ever happening to me, there's no reason why it couldn't happen. But regardless, if this is an argument for why NDEs can't be dreams, you're begging the question when you state that dreams can't have life-changing effects. If NDEs are dreams, clearly dreams can have life-changing effects.
3. Third, people have had NDEs while they were declared dead with flat EEG lines on their brain activity.
Citation needed.
4. Fourth, some people have NDEs even when they were not in danger of death.
Is that a bullet hole in your foot? Damn, that's gotta hurt.
Argument 24. Consciousness is neurologically based, dependent on brain, and does not survive physical death. Skeptics who say this do not really consider all the data and cases. There are too many credible NDE stories indicating that consciousness survives death to discount.
Actually, this is completely wrong. Even if we were to accept that magic things happen when you're near death, and there's absolutely no indication of this, no matter how many people say so, it doesn't follow that you experience anything when actually dead. The problem here is that there's no way to tell when an NDE takes place, before the brain shuts down, while it's off, or after it comes back on. What we'd have to do is turn a brain off, keep it off, and get information from the brain-dead subject in real time. I trust you can all see the practical problem there. As for skeptics not considering all the data, sorry, it's woo believers who don't. They don't consider that consciousness is affected when the brain is manipulated. Drugs can alter your state of mind or render you unconscious. The same is true with physical trauma. Even magnetic fields can cause hallucinations under the right conditions. This is perfectly consistent with consciousness being nothing more than the activity of the brain.
And it's completely inconsistent with it being some supernatural, magical woo. See you next time.